If I'd changed my password after the breakup, none of this happens. But I didn't, because I wanted him to know I still trusted him. 3 years building a climbing gym together, and the only thing I actually protected was the combination to the supply closet. So when Becca walked in last Tuesday with chalk on her cheek and her toddler on her hip and said, "Hey, I checked out your new location across town. Love that you kept the same wall angles," I laughed. Then I didn't. Becca had been a member since before we opened, back when our front desk was a folding table and our pro shop was a milk crate full of tape. She knew our roots, our setters, our first winter when the heating failed and everyone climbed in beanies. She was not someone who confused rumors for facts. "What new location?" I asked. "Mercer Avenue," she said. "Old furniture warehouse. The guy at the desk said it was basically yours. Same wall angles, same kid's cave under the mezzanine. The arch feature is mirrored, but it's you." My first thought was not betrayal. It was scheduling. That tells you more about me than I like. There was no way a build-out had happened and I'd missed permits, inspections, insurance, staffing, occupancy. Then I thought, Mercer was where I wanted our second location. Then I thought of the one person who knew that. "What was it called?" I asked. "Summit Harbor? I assumed it was a rebrand thing. Your old LLC name was Harbor, right?" Our company was Harbor Wall Collective, LLC. My ex and former co-owner, Nico, had named it while we were still drinking gas station coffee in my Corolla outside condemned warehouses, trying to find one with enough ceiling height and not enough rent to kill us. Harbor because it sounded safe, he'd said. Summit Harbor was not my name, but it was close enough to make my stomach fold in on itself. "Can you text me the address?" I asked. She did. 1184 Mercer Avenue. I knew the building. I had a folder on it. 2 years earlier, before the breakup and the buyout, and the month when Nico and I used the staff bathroom as neutral territory, I had made a whole expansion plan for that exact warehouse. Lease comps, membership projections, occupancy caps, equipment lists, vendor quotes, kids programming forecasts, bowstring trusses, 28-foot clear height, loading dock that could become an accessible entrance if you threw enough money and patience at it. Nico had called it premature. "Let's make this place profitable first," he'd said. He wasn't wrong. That was the thing about Nico that made him hard to explain later. He was often right in the way a person can be right and still be using the truth as a locked door. I walked into my office and shut the door. My office is a converted storage nook between the utility room and the birthday party closet. It smells like rubber flooring, printer toner, and the lavender hand cream my bookkeeper keeps leaving on my desk because she believes stress exits through the knuckles. Above my computer is our first hold order, framed as a joke. 6 jugs, 4 pinches, 2 volumes, 1 invoice we could not afford. Beside it was a photo from opening day. Nico and me covered in sawdust, smiling like we invented ceilings. I turned the photo face down. Then I opened the city permitting portal. It is not a dramatic website. It is beige in the way only municipal software can be beige. I searched Harbor Wall Collective. Nothing new. I searched Harbor. 3 results. 1 was our original build-out. 1 was an electrical upgrade I'd filed after a storm fried half our lights. The 3rd had been issued 7 months earlier. Commercial interior alteration. 1184 Mercer Avenue. Applicant, Harbor Wall Collective, LLC. Contact email, mara@harborwallcollective.com. My name, my business, my email. Contractor of record, Vale Construction Services. Authorized representative, Nicholas Vale. Nico's last name was Vale. After he sold his share of the gym, he'd formed a small project management outfit. I knew because I had written a recommendation for his contractor licensing application. I had used words like detail-oriented and integrity because grief makes you generous in ways that become embarrassing later. The permit status said final inspection pending. For one hot second, I wanted to call him. I wanted to hear the little pause before the lie, the intake of breath he thought nobody noticed. I wanted to say, "Are you kidding me?" and let the whole thing become a fight with familiar furniture. But anger is expensive when you run a business. You spend it, and payroll is still due. So I took a screenshot. Then I saved the permit summary as a PDF, printed 2 copies, and put one in my planner. Only after the printer stopped did I remember the plywood email. 3 months earlier, a vendor in Tacoma had sent a message with the subject line, "Thank you for your repeat order." Madsen's Specialty Panels was the only supplier I'd found within a day's freight who could reliably get the 18mm birch ply our wall builder preferred. The email said, "Mara, always good to see Harbor back on our schedule. We've got the 144-sheet order queued for late May delivery. Appreciate the continued business." At the time, I'd been standing in the doorway of a kids' class while an 8-year-old argued that gravity was cheating. I had replied from my phone, "Hi, Paul, I think this came to me by mistake. We haven't placed an order recently." Paul wrote back, "Apologies, must be a duplicate contact in our system." I accepted that, because vendor CRMs are held together with hope and old passwords. Also because I did not want to imagine Nico ordering the same specialty plywood we used for our custom walls. Now the email sat in my memory like a stone in a shoe. I found it, exported the original message, and saved it in a folder called Mercer. That is one of the small humiliations of competence. You can be devastated and still know how to label files. My office door opened without a knock. Jordan leaned in, holding a towel bundle. "You look like you found a raccoon in QuickBooks," they said. Worse. Nico built a gym on Mercer. Jordan's face changed. They had worked for us when Nico was still co-owner. They'd seen the charming version, the exhausted version, and the version who once rewrote the staff schedule without telling me because he thought my labor percentages were emotionally conservative, which remains one of the dumbest phrases ever used to understaff a Saturday. "As in dreaming out loud?" Jordan asked. "Or as in I should stop making jokes?" "As in Becca climbed there yesterday. As in the permit lists our LLC and my email." They stepped inside and closed the door. I wasn't okay because of the business. Our gym was not a cute side hustle. It was my mortgage, my staff's rent, the place where teenagers learned to trust their feet, and divorced dads found Wednesday night friends. And people like Becca brought their kids because the mats were clean, and nobody made them feel weak for starting over. But underneath that was the more embarrassing wound. I had left the door open. When Nico and I split, we did the paperwork. He took a modest payout over 18 months. I kept the gym, the debt, and the cracked office chair. I changed the banking credentials, payroll, insurance, member software, and front door alarm. I did not change my Google password. I did not remove his old recovery email from one legacy drive folder. I did not revoke every shared link. Why? Because part of me wanted to prove the breakup had not made me small. I wanted to be the kind of person who could say, "We built something together, and now I'll carry it forward without turning history into evidence." Stupid. Not because trusting is stupid, because trust is not a filing system. Jordan sat on the extra chair. "What do you need?" "I need to not call him." Excellent first goal. "I need the full permit file." "How?" "Public records request." "I'll cover front desk." At the door, they paused. "Mara, don't make this about whether you should have known. Make it about what he did." I nodded, as if I could accept that on command. The city clerk's records form gave me a box the size of a postcard. I wrote, "Full permit application file, including plans, attachments, correspondence, revisions, inspection comments, and applicant submissions for commercial interior alteration permit C-24-1184-M, project address 1184 Mercer Avenue, applicant listed as Harbor Wall Collective LLC, contact email mara@harborwallcollective.com. I am the managing member of Harbor Wall Collective LLC and did not authorize this application." I attached the permit summary, my ID, and our LLC registration. Then I added one sentence I nearly deleted because it felt dramatic. I am concerned that my business identity may have been used without authorization. I submitted it at 11:42 a.m. At 12:06, my phone rang. Hi, is this Mara Ellis? This is Lena Ortiz with the City Clerk's Records Office. She confirmed I was saying I had not filed or authorized the permit. She asked whether Nico was currently authorized to act for Harbor Wall Collective. No, he was a former co-owner. He sold his interest last year. Please send the buyout agreement, she said. The plan set and attachments are releasable, though some personal information may be redacted. Standard turnaround is 10 business days. Given that your name and email appear as applicant contact and you're raising an authorization issue, I'm flagging this for expedited review. I can't promise today, but I'll try for Friday. It was Tuesday. I also want to be clear, she added. Our office releases records. We don't adjudicate fraud. If you intend to challenge the permit, file a formal objection with Planning and Development Services. But get the file first. Don't rely on the summary. It was the first time all morning someone had spoken to me like I was a person standing on a bridge, not a woman overreacting to an ex. After we hung up, I changed every password I could think of. Google, vendor portals, Dropbox, which I forgot we even had, the email service we used for birthday party coupons in 2021, the shared Canva account where Nico once designed a flyer so ugly I told him it was bold, which is what you say when love has eaten your standards. I revoked old drive permissions and found several links set to anyone with link can view. Most were harmless, but one folder was called expansion models. It was still shared with Nico's old Gmail. Inside were my old Mercer documents, lease notes, capital budget, neighborhood density map, kids programming forecast, vendor sourcing master. The last modified dates showed my work from back then, plus one access marker from 7 months earlier, viewed by shared user. Google did not give me a movie of Nico sneaking in. It gave me a gray little line in an activity panel and let me do the math myself. I screenshotted it. On Wednesday, Nico texted me. Hey, heard from a member you're asking about Mercer. Would rather you call me before this gets weird. I read it during a staff meeting while Jordan explained why we were retiring the orange slopers everyone hated, except one guy named Brent who has fingers like pliers. I put the phone face down. 5 minutes later, another text. It's not what you think. That phrase should be banned from use by anyone who has made the thing exactly what you think. I did not reply. On Thursday, Paul from Madsen Specialty Panels called after I emailed asking for clarification on the May order associated with Harbor. He sounded uneasy before I finished. Mara, I'm sorry. I should have pushed harder when you said it was a mistake. The purchase order came from Vale Construction, but it referenced Harbor Wall Collective in the project notes. Same spec as your previous order, same delivery region. I assumed Nico was still connected with you. He's not. I understand that now. I'm not asking you to violate confidentiality, I said. Can you confirm in writing that your thank you email was triggered by an order from Vale Construction referencing Harbor? 10 minutes later, he emailed. Confirming our March 14 automated thank you message was generated because a May 1444 sheet specialty panel order placed by Vale Construction Services included Harbor Wall Collective / Mercer Wall Package in the internal project reference. Your contact profile remained associated with Harbor Wall Collective in our system from prior orders. We have now separated the accounts. It wasn't a smoking gun. It was a wisp of smoke from under a locked door. I printed it. By Friday, I had become a person who printed emails. At 3:18 p.m., Lena Ortiz sent the permit file. 3 PDFs and 1 spreadsheet converted to PDF. Responsive records attached, she wrote. Due to the authorization concern noted in your request, I have separately advised planning intake that the named applicant disputes authorization. You may file a formal objection using Form PDS-17. She did not have to do that. It was not a grand, heroic gesture. It was a city employee using discretion inside a system that usually moves like cold syrup. It mattered. I opened the plan set. Cover sheet, code summary, occupancy classification, existing conditions, demolition, proposed floor plan. Then, the climbing wall elevations. I knew them before my eyes finished reading. There was the 12-degree training board tucked beside the campus rungs to make use of a low ceiling bay. There was the beginner slab fanning from 82 to 88 degrees because I hated dead vertical beginner walls and believed people learned better with honest feet. There was the kids' cave under the mezzanine with the little porthole cutout I had sketched during a rainstorm because I wanted children to feel like they were climbing into a ship. There was the arch. He had mirrored it, just like Becca said. But the angles were ours. Not similar. Ours. I opened my old renovation plan and compared page by page. On sheet A3.2 of the city plan, I found the mistake. A measurement placeholder I had forgotten to delete from my own draft. Verify 14-738 field? It pointed to a jog in the north wall that did not exist at Mercer. In my original file, it referred to an odd column chase in our current building near the old freight elevator. It had no function on Mercer's plan. It just floated there beside a clean wall like a fossil in the wrong rock. He hadn't rebuilt the concept. He had copied the file. I laughed once, a brittle, ugly sound. Of all the things to steal, he had stolen my uncertainty, my question marks. I made a comparison document. Original file name, modified date, permit sheet number, matching feature, screenshot, highlight. I included the non-functional placeholder and a photo of the actual column chase in our building. I did not write lying weasel in the margins. Receipts do not get stronger because you decorate them. The second PDF was correspondence. Nico's name appeared again and again as authorized representative for the applicant. Each resubmission had a certification line. I certify that I am authorized to submit documents on behalf of the applicant. On behalf of the applicant. Me. Then I opened the spreadsheet. At first, it was a standard equipment schedule. Flooring, holds, wall panels, anchors, rental harnesses, belay devices, crash pads, cubbies, lockers, check-in tablets. Then the PDF kept going. Whoever exported it had printed all columns, including the hidden ones off to the right in my original vendor sourcing master. Negotiated unit cost, freight cap, discount code, contact, prior quote date, alternate vendor, Mara max price. My price. Not public catalog numbers, not market rates. My negotiated pricing from 3 years of paying early when I could, being polite to sales reps, and once spending 40 minutes helping a hold company's owner find a local setter for his niece's college wall. There was padded flooring, 6,800 square feet from Northline Athletic Surfaces. Unit cost $11.42. Freight capped at $1,200 if bundled with adhesive. That rate was not on their website. I knew because I had begged for it after our original quote nearly made me cry in a Home Depot parking lot. There was a line for rental harnesses. 85 units, 3 sizes, mixed from a vendor I used only because their buckles survived summer camp. Beside it was my note. Order 10 extra XS. Birthday parties skew tiny. He hadn't even removed that. That was when the deeper thing landed. This was not just theft because he wanted a gym. He had rushed Mercer to open before me. In my old expansion model, I had marked that spring as the earliest possible window for a second location lease negotiation, assuming our membership hit 1,200 recurring, youth programs stayed full, and I could secure a business line of credit without pledging my soul, and possibly a kidney. Nico knew that. He had sat at my kitchen table while I showed him the model. If Summit Harbor opened first, with our wall angles, our vendor mix, our programming assumptions, our member familiarity, my eventual expansion would look like the copy. He could occupy the neighborhood, court our members, confuse the market, and tell investors or landlords he had executed the concept while I was still thinking about it. He wasn't just taking what I had built. He was stepping into the future I had trusted him enough to describe. I called our attorney, Priya. She let me talk for 4 uninterrupted minutes, which I later saw on the invoice as client narrative re permit irregularity and document misappropriation. Then she said, "Do not go to the gym. Do not post. Do not contact him except through counsel." I wasn't going to go to the gym. You were absolutely thinking about going. I was thinking about driving past. Mara. Slowly. Mara. Fine. "What do you want?" she asked. It annoyed me because I wanted a menu. Press 1 for moral vindication. Press 2 for lost revenue. Press 3 to reverse time and change your password while eating ice cream in sweatpants. "I want him not to open using my business identity," I said. "I want members to know we're not affiliated without me sounding unhinged. I want my vendor pricing protected. And I want whatever authority exists to care that he certified he was authorized when he wasn't." "Good," Priya said. "The permit issue may give us leverage faster than a civil claim. If the city relied on a false applicant representation, planning can freeze final occupancy while they review. The contractor licensing board may care. Separately, we can send a preservation letter and evaluate trade secret and breach claims." For 3 years, Nico had teased me for being a receipt goblin because I saved invoices in nested folders. "Okay," I said. "Let's present it cleanly." Saturday morning, I told the staff enough to keep them safe and consistent. We sat on crash pads before opening, the gym quiet except for HVAC and distant pipes. Jordan brought coffee. Luis, our head setter, wound and unwound a roll of tape. Tessa from youth programs looked furious before I finished the first sentence. "There is a new climbing gym on Mercer," I said. "It is not affiliated with us. Its permit application lists our LLC and my email without authorization. I'm working with council and the city. If members ask, please say exactly. Harbor Wall Collective has no second location and is not affiliated with any Mercer Avenue gym. Don't speculate, don't argue online. Send questions to me." Luis raised his hand because he is both a gifted setter and the kind of adult who raises his hand in a 7-person meeting. "Is it Nico?" "Yes." The room went quiet. Tessa said, "I'm going to bite through a carabiner." "Please don't, they're expensive." That got a small laugh, which we needed. Then Sam, one of our newer front desk staff, asked, "Are our jobs okay?" There it was, the question underneath everything. "I don't know what impact this will have," I said, "but we are not closing. Payroll is covered. We are taking steps. I'll tell you what I can when I can." Jordan looked around. "Also, if someone tries to get you to say something spicy for screenshots, do not be a hero. Be boring. Boring is legally beautiful." "Boring is legally beautiful," Luis repeated solemnly. It became, briefly, our motto. By Monday, Priya and I had the formal objection ready. It was not satisfying in the way revenge fantasies are satisfying. There were no insults. The subject line was, "Formal objection to permit C24-241184-M based on unauthorized use of applicant identity." The attachments were numbered. City permit summary listing Harbor Wall Collective and my email. LLC registration and buyout agreement showing Nico had no ownership interest after the effective date. Permit correspondence where Nicholas Vale certified authorization to submit on behalf of the applicant. Plan comparison showing identical design elements and the non-functional measurement placeholder from my private file. Equipment schedule containing hidden column negotiated vendor pricing matching my confidential sourcing spreadsheet. Madsen Specialty Panels email confirming Vale Construction's order referenced Harbor Wall Collective/Mercer Wall Package. Screenshot of legacy drive access to the expansion models folder. The request was simple. Freeze final certificate of occupancy. Conduct administrative review of the permit application due to misrepresentation of applicant authority. Refer the contractor certification issue to the licensing board if warranted. Require correction of applicant identity and proof of authorization before any occupancy approval. Priya added one sentence I liked. Harbor Wall Collective does not seek to interfere with lawful competition. It objects to the use of its identity and proprietary submissions to obtain municipal approvals. That mattered because I knew what Nico would say. He would say I was afraid of competition. He would say we built the concept together. He would say I was bitter. He would say proprietary like it was a word I learned from a podcast. Maybe I was emotional. I was also correct. We filed the objection at 9:07 a.m. At 9:32, Lena Ortiz emailed. Received. I have forwarded this to Planning Intake Supervisor and flagged for expedited administrative review due to applicant identity dispute. At 11:15, Nico called. I let it go to voicemail. Then he texted, "You have no idea what you're doing." I forwarded it to Priya. At 12:04, Summit Harbor's Instagram posted a glossy photo of the mirrored arch with the caption, "Soft launch week was a blast. Grand opening announcement coming soon." By 12:10, 3 members had sent it to me. At 12:30, I posted from our official account. We received questions about a facility on Mercer Avenue. Harbor Wall Collective has 1 location and is not affiliated with any Mercer Avenue climbing gym. For questions, contact Mara at harborwallcollective.com. Boring. Legally beautiful. At 2:46, Priya forwarded an email from planning. Certificate of occupancy for 1184 Mercer Avenue will remain pending while department conducts administrative review of applicant authorization and permit representations. No public occupancy authorized until review completed. I read it once, then again. Then I walked out and found Jordan teaching a new member how to adjust a rental harness. I waited until they were done because some things are more important than drama, and one of them is making sure the waist belt sits above the hip bones. When Jordan turned, I held up my phone. They read the email and whispered, "Holy hell." Boring, I reminded them. Boring, holy hell. The freeze did not close Summit Harbor forever. The city did not declare me queen of Mercer Avenue. They did not seize Nico's holds or roll up his flooring. They stopped him from opening to the public until he answered for the permit. That was enough to change the weather. The grand opening announcement disappeared. Their website changed from opening this weekend to coming soon. Members who had been invited to the soft launch got emails about unforeseen permitting delays. One forwarded it to me with the subject line, "This wording doing yoga." Then the licensing board notice arrived. The city had forwarded the permit certification issue for review of possible misrepresentation in a professional submission. Nico, as authorized representative for Vail Construction Services, would have to respond. That was the part that scared him. Not my hurt, not the copying, not even the occupancy freeze. The license. Nico called Priya within an hour. She summarized the conversation for me because she is too professional to send audio, and I am just petty enough to have wanted it. He says Harbor Wall Collective was used as a legacy project name inadvertently, she said. He says the design was developed from concepts created during his ownership and therefore jointly held. He says your expansion folder was shared with him and he believed he retained access for closeout purposes. Closeout of a second location we never built? I did ask a version of that. Did he have an answer? He pivoted. Of course he did. Nico could pivot on a dime and make you feel guilty for owning the dime. What now? I asked. Now he decides whether to fight the city while the certificate is frozen. We send a demand letter about your plans, confidential pricing, and business identity. But Mara, this may not end with him admitting he stole anything. It may end with corrections, delays, costs, and him having to rebuild parts of his application. I can live without a confession. Can you? I hated that she asked. Because no, not entirely. I wanted him to look at the verify 14738 field note and admit he had copied me so carelessly he stole my question marks. I wanted him to say he knew Mercer mattered to me. I wanted him to acknowledge that he had used the little door I left open because I didn't want to become suspicious after loving him. But wanting a confession from someone who benefits from denial is like wanting a receipt from fog. So I said, I can live with consequences. The next week taught me that consequences often arrive wearing khakis. A planning supervisor scheduled an administrative review call. On the line were me, Priya, Nico, Nico's attorney, the supervisor, and someone from contractor licensing who introduced herself as observing. Nico sounded tired. That hurt more than if he had sounded smug. "Mara," he said, before the supervisor finished the ground rules. "This got way out of hand." Priya cut in. "Please direct comments through the department." The supervisor asked Nico's attorney to explain why Vale Construction had listed Harbor Wall Collective as applicant. His attorney said the project originated from legacy development materials created while Nico was associated with Harbor, and the use of the LLC name was administrative carryover. Administrative carryover. Such a tidy little coffin for a lie. Priya responded with dates. Buyout executed August 31. Final payment completed January 15. Permit filed February 6. No authorization after buyout. Applicant email belonged to me. Certification signed by Nico. Plans included a non-functional placeholder from my private file. Equipment schedule included confidential pricing. Madsen order referenced Harbor. No adjectives, just dates. The licensing observer asked one question. "Mr. Vale, at the time you certified you were authorized to submit on behalf of Harbor Wall Collective LLC, what document granted that authority?" Silence is not always empty. Sometimes it is packed, floor to ceiling. Nico's attorney said, "We'll need to review." The occupancy freeze remained. 3 days later, Summit Harbor withdrew its original permit application and refiled under a new entity, Summit Harbor Climbing, LLC, with Nico as owner and Vale Construction as contractor. The city required a new review of revised plans, not just a name correction, because the original application's authority was disputed and the attachments were tainted. Tainted was the city's word in an email, and I considered framing it. Nico had to submit new equipment schedules without my vendor pricing. He had to get vendor letters under his own account. He had to revise plan sheets to remove disputed proprietary elements or provide documentation of independent ownership. The licensing board opened a formal inquiry, which did not revoke his license overnight, but did require documents and a hearing date. His soft launch waivers became a problem too, because he had allowed invited climbers before final public occupancy. The city issued a warning and a small fine. Not huge, not ruinous. Official. Meanwhile, my gym stayed open. That sounds simple. It wasn't. For weeks, I answered member questions while trying not to bleed on people who only asked where to put rental shoes. I smiled through comments like, "Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery," because the customer service part of my brain knew homicide was frowned upon and also non-refundable. I lost sleep. I found 3 more shared folders and spent a Saturday changing permissions instead of hiking with my sister like I'd promised. My sister, Elena, came over that night with takeout and watched me revoke a link to a 2019 holiday party folder. "You know," she said, "most people process heartbreak with bad bangs or pottery. I'm doing access control. Sexy. I contain multitudes." She pushed noodles toward me. "Do you miss him?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to be the kind of woman who, once wronged, becomes polished stone. Instead, I said, "I miss who I was when trusting him made sense." Elena's face softened. "That's the part I don't know what to do with," I said. "Everyone keeps saying he stole from me. And he did. But I also handed him so much. Passwords, plans, ideas. Even after the breakup, I thought leaving access open meant I was being mature." "It was mature to not want a war," she said. "It was not your job to anticipate theft from someone who knew where your mother kept her chemo blanket." That made me cry, which annoyed me because the noodles were getting cold. The emotional cost did not come in one grand breakdown. It came in stupid little places. I stopped saying "we" when talking about the early gym, then felt like I had erased myself, because "we" had included me too. I took down the opening day photo, put it in a drawer, took it back out, cut it in half. then felt ridiculous and taped my half into my planner like a ransom note to my own past. I deleted an old voicemail from Nico congratulating me after our first profitable month, then cried because now I could never prove he had once sounded proud of me. Receipts are useful. They are not medicine. About a month after Becca's question, Nico and I ended up in the same room for mediation related to Priya's demand letter. Not court, not fireworks. A conference room with bad acoustics and a plate of grocery store cookies nobody touched. His attorney did most of the talking. Nico agreed to stop using the Summit Harbor name or any branding likely to imply affiliation with Harbor Wall Collective. He agreed to reimburse my legal fees related to the permit objection, up to a negotiated cap, which was less than I wanted and more than he wanted. He agreed not to use my vendor spreadsheet, pricing, or expansion materials, and to certify deletion of remaining copies from his accounts and company devices, with his attorney supervising enough of the process to make the words mean something. He agreed to notify soft launch participants that the Mercer facility was not affiliated with Harbor Wall Collective. He did not admit wrongdoing. Of course he didn't. At the end, when the attorneys were packing up, he finally looked at me. "You know, I helped build this too," he said. There was no shouting in his voice. That made it worse. He sounded almost wounded, as if my objection had stolen the story where he was simply continuing something we started. "Yes," I said. "You did." His eyes flickered. "And then you used my company name on a permit after you were gone." He looked away first. It was not the confession I wanted. It was smaller, a flinch. I took it anyway. The City Review delayed his opening by nearly 4 months. By the time the Mercer Gym opened under a new name, with revised wall features and no harbor in the title, the confusion had passed. Some members tried it, some liked it. A few left us because Mercer was closer to their house. And I had to be gracious, because convenience is not betrayal. Honest competition is allowed to exist. Nico's licensing board inquiry ended with a public reprimand, a fine, and a 1-year probationary condition requiring third-party verification of applicant authorization on permit submissions. Not prison, not exile, not a thunderbolt. A mark on the record he cared about, caused by the record he falsified. That mattered more than any angry post I could have written. The best consequence was quieter. Vendors called me. Paul from Madsen first, then Northline, then the harness supplier whose buckles survived summer camp. They had received odd requests, duplicate specs or pricing questions from Vail Construction. Once they understood the situation, they separated accounts, locked my negotiated pricing to my customer profile, and agreed to require written authorization before associating Harbor Wall Collective with any third-party project. Paul sounded embarrassed when we finally spoke. "I should have called you back in March," he said. "I should have changed my passwords in January," I said. "Maybe we both update our procedures and pretend wisdom was the plan." I laughed for real that time. We did update procedures. Vendor authorization letters, quarterly access audits, a boring spreadsheet called Shared Permissions Review that Jordan decorated with a goblin sticker because apparently Receipt Goblin had become gym folklore. Staff got password manager training and complained exactly the right amount. I created a policy that no romantic, business, or it's complicated relationship would ever again be allowed to serve as IT infrastructure. That line made Priya laugh, which I consider one of my finest legal achievements. A few months later, we announced an expansion of our own. Not Mercer. That opportunity was gone, and I had to grieve it like a place I had lived, even though I never held the keys. We found a smaller building north of downtown. Less glamorous, better parking, uglier bathrooms. The ceilings were not as high, but the landlord answered emails in complete sentences, which is its own kind of structural integrity. On the first walkthrough, Becca came with me because she works in commercial HVAC, and because she had accidentally become the patron saint of asking the right question at the wrong time. Her son was in a phase of calling every large room a dinosaur garage. "This place has potential," she said, looking up at the beams. It has leaks, I said. Potential leaks. You're very supportive. I try. She stood where the beginner slab might go. You gonna keep the same wall angles? I looked at her. She raised both hands. Too soon? It was, and it wasn't. I laughed until I had to lean against a dusty column. We did keep some angles, not because Nico had taken them, but because they were good. Theft does not make your own work unusable. We changed what needed changing. We kept what served climbers. We added features born from the new room, because copying yourself out of fear is still copying. The arch became something else entirely. Not a ship porthole, not a mirrored signature. In the new kids area, we built a low tunnel shaped like a river bend, with handholds set close enough for cautious 5-year-olds and enough downclimb jugs that my insurance agent stopped making the noise she makes when imagining lawsuits. On opening day, Becca's son crawled through it in a dinosaur shirt and declared it not scary, but secret, which is about the best review any children's feature can get. I kept my half of the original opening day photo in my planner. Me covered in sawdust, smiling like I invented ceilings. For a while, I hated that picture, because Nico had been standing beside me in the other half. Then one day I realized the cut edge did not make the remaining image false. I had been there. I had built that place. My joy was not invalid because someone unworthy stood near it. The last loose thread was the vendor email. It sat in my archived folder for months, flagged red, subject line still cheerful in the stupid way automated messages are cheerful. Thank you for your repeat order. I used to open it when I wanted to punish myself. There it was, the warning I had dismissed. Harbor back on our schedule. 144-sheet order. Appreciate the continued business. A flare shot into the sky while I was busy explaining gravity to children. Eventually, after the city notice, the licensing reprimand, the settlement, the vendor account changes, and the new expansion lease, I opened it one more time for a different reason. The thread showed my old reply. I think this came to me by mistake. I sat with that sentence for a long time. It had not come to me by mistake. It had come to me because some part of the system still knew the truth before I did. My name was still attached. My work was still attached. My trust was still attached. I clicked reply. My hands did not shake. That felt like progress. Thank you for flagging this, I wrote. I believe there's been a misunderstanding. Let's get on a call. I attached the city's administrative review notice, the vendor authorization form, and the public licensing board reprimand. Then I CC'd Nico. Not because I wanted a fight. Not because I expected him to answer. He didn't. I CC'd him because for once, the open loop closed in front of him. Before I hit send, I looked through the office window at the gym floor. Jordan was teaching a new front desk hire how to check harness returns for frayed belay loops. Luis was on a ladder adjusting a purple volume by 1/2 inch, because 1/2 inch is sometimes the difference between elegant and cruel. Becca was on the slab wall, moving slowly and surely, chalk on her cheek again, like punctuation. The arch from our first build still curved over the far wall. Not his, not mine alone maybe, but ours now in the larger sense. The staff who maintained it, the members who climbed it, the kids who pointed at it, the community that knew exactly where they were. I sent the email. Then I changed the supply closet combination too, because growth is growth,